What's going on, guys? We're going to be looking at Matt Mercer's unofficial Critical Role Gunslinger that you may find on D&D Beyond. It's the one that is the closest to being official because it's on the Beyond website, but it's still not official, and there are a lot of problems with it. And so we're going to be talking about that, but for this video we're going to mainly be talking about how you can build one. Some of the things that we're going to talk about will be useful for the other builds that we talk about as we try to dig further into the Gunslinger or alternatives to the Gunslinger, or even other classes that may be able to use firearms. Basically, one of the ones that is a popular alternative is the Battlemaster Fighter, and that we may have a look at that in the future, in a future video. For me, I have tried to build a gunslinger-like character using Battlemaster, but I found it a bit frustrating because the Battlemaster has a lot of abilities that are only able to be used for melee. But perhaps that's okay for you. Let me know in the comments if you know any good homebrews for gunslingers. But basically, Matt Mercer and Critical Role, he's very famous, he's very popular, and, you know, this is something that he's created, and good on him for doing that, but there are better homebrew versions out there, which we'll cover in later videos. Alright, so basically one of the issues with this class or subclass is that it was published before Tasha's, so it was published before the Gunner feat, and the two have a few redundancies and were not designed to work together. And since that Gunner feat has been added, we have a lot more freedom creating the Gunslinger or Gunslinger-like characters. Also, the Gunslinger has a lot of funny rules for firearms, like misfire, that don't exist anywhere else. Nobody else has got to deal with them. Only the character that was designed to use firearms has a chance of misfiring them. It's also interesting that Critical Role's Percy uses intelligence as his grip points modifier rather than wisdom. You can see that on the link there. The other issue that I don't like about this particular Gunslinger is that you will have to really work with your DM quite closely and get a lot of pre-approval for things. So you may end up in a situation where you think you're signing up for something as a player, the DM doesn't like it, then you're sort of trying to negotiate with them, or vice versa. The DM's vision for this character is completely different for yours, and it just makes it there's no guarantee that it's going to be the character that you think you're going to be playing. So let's dig into it though. You're probably going to be a variant human or a custom lineage. They are by far the best. Variant human, you would get those increases to your ability score. Choose a skill for flavor, but more importantly, you get a feat, and of course, you're going to choose Gunner. Custom lineage is a little bit different, but you can create the character that you want using the Tasha's rules. That includes a ability score increase of 2 on your choice. So that is something that's interesting. You get that feat again, plus a chance to get dark vision, which is probably the only thing that's holding humans back. All the rest is flavor, but I think if you are allowed to take custom lineage, it's definitely a good way to start this character. Another thing you might like is the GIF, or gun-wielding space hippos. They start with firearm proficiency. They've already got the gunner feat, sort of, because they ignore loading property of firearms. The no disadvantage attacking long range with firearms as well is part of that. And they get some other things like swim speeds and advantage strength checks and stuff, which really don't help you with your gunslinger type, but they add a bit of extra flavor. Other species that you might consider: Ghostwise halflings, Wood Elves, Aarakocra, Hill Dwarves, which are not as good but okay, and Bugbears. Um, you might wish to consider Halflings because of that lucky feat. If your DM is going to make you play the Misfire rules, which we'll talk about later, the Halfling's lucky ability will help with that. So, looking at the Gunslinger, what backgrounds are best? Well, no, of none of the backgrounds actually help the Gunslinger in any big way. So really, we're just looking at flavor, and also backgrounds are going to be changed in the new rules. So no doubt we'll have to visit this again. But I kind of like things like Astral Drifter for the flavor of it. Whether they would be gunslingers in the astral planes is up to the DM, but I think that fits in well with the wandering cowboy type. The charlatan definitely has some advantages. Sleight of hand goes good if you want to be like that card shark gambler. There is a gambler background, which I don't think is as good, but it's up to you. If you want to be a sheriff, you could take, the City Watch or Investigator. It's interesting. It's got, I don't know, the set of manacles would be good if you want to make an arrest. How to get proficiency in wagons, though, and this is really what I have been trying to do with my Gunslinger, is I didn't start with either of these backgrounds, and I wish I had. I wish I had gone for Folk Hero and been able to get a wagon proficiency, because now I'm trying to learn how to drive a wagon, even though my character has been working for a wagon train as a guard for a long time. I have been unable to successfully learn how to drive wagons, and the rules for learning vehicles are not 100% clear. I actually chose this one, Haunted One, which I thought would be a bit darker and fit in with more of the Dark Tower kind of feel to it. Unfortunately, my DM has interpreted this more as being haunted by a defeat in a duel. I can only hope that some of the demonic undead sort of things might come into the game later, but if it doesn't, that's okay. I mean, I'm enjoying that campaign, but I must say that a lot of the stuff like the steel mirror and stuff like that I kind of have gotten rid of. It was a lot to carry around, but let's see what happens. Other backgrounds that could be useful: criminal or spy. The Outlander sort of is definitely singing out to be a cowboy. There are no backgrounds like farmer or rancher or cowboy or stockman or jillaroo, jackaroo, bush ranger. I think it would be interesting to add them, and I think I might have a go at it in another video. Backgrounds don't really account for culture, like they usually focused around jobs or roles, so I think that's lacking, and the new 1D&D rules don't seem to address that either. So it'll be something, I think, it will be an ongoing thing. I don't think 1D&D has landed on the final answer for backgrounds yet. Ability scores, well, your main one's going to be dexterity. Then you want wisdom for grit points. They are your main important ones. Of course, everybody loves constitution for the hit points. For me, I know that it's a dex fighter, but I really didn't like being weak when I used my my strength as a dump stat, and I ended up taking the 13th strength for the chainmail just because I wanted to be more of a Ned Kelly kind of gunfighter, not with the criminal behavior of Ned Kelly, but more of that iconic suit of armor that he wears. I thought that would be an interesting compromise for a D&D world. So I chose to do that, and I'm glad I did, because also he can carry stuff. And like when I was mucking around with my character concept and looking at the character, when he had 8 strength, he was like heavily encumbered, and it just wasn't working for me. It ended up slowing his speed down and stuff like that. So for me, I needed the extra strength. But for other people, maybe they don't. You could put the 13 into another ability. Charisma is one option for that bullying shot, but actually I would say forget bullying shot completely and don't worry about charisma. Intelligence is also really not needed. I read one source that said intelligence was needed for the tool checks, but that's not true. It's just a plain old tool check, and you have proficiency in it from the subclass. So this was what it might look like with a standard array or point buy system, including the things that you would get from your species and your gunner feat. So hopefully you could build something like this, or perhaps you might have something similar to this. Like I said, you might change your mind about 13 strength, but like just having some strength was important to me. I don't want my gunslinger to be weak. It's supposed to be like a powerful Clint Eastwood kind of character that is a bit tough and could be in a tavern brawl as well as being a good gunfighter. So then as you progress through the levels, you're going to want to take feats and add to your abilities so that you can increase them up to 20. And this is a map on how you can do it, starting with dexterity, then wisdom, and then constitution. It also, if you have a look at the feats, you'll see how you can build that. Here's gunner. It's really the must have. Basically increases your dexterity. It gives you the proficiency in firearms, which is sort of redundant with the gunslinger, but there you are. Ignoring loading, though, is super powerful, and we'll talk about loading later. And then being able to fire within 5 foot of a hostile creature without imposing disadvantage is a really big one. So get this as soon as you can, and you really do want to have sharpshooter just for the getting rid of the disadvantage from ranged attacks and ignoring cover. Piercer is good if you can. You get that extra bonus to dexterity and a little bit of extra damage. Alert is also good, just so you go first. I must admit, working with my party as a gunslinger, I'm happy to go a little bit further down in the initiative order, but that's just my thing, because then I can sort of like pick off people as needed, rather, because I'm not a frontline person. I just take off. I just shoot around and take out the enemies as I can. Other useful feats might be athlete or fade touch. I thought might be interesting just for the bonus to your wisdom and get a bit of a misty step thing going, as well as an extra spell. Skill expert might be good. I guess I'm just trying to work out a way that I can get this wagon proficiency too, but it doesn't seem like any of these. It says skills or tools, but it never says vehicle. It's very hard to get proficiency in a vehicle without taking it as your background. Sadly, there's no horse riding skills. Well, there's no room in the build for horse riding skills, and I really would have liked to have seen that. I thought being a cowboy gunslinger would be good and riding horses, but then again, mounted combat is something that D&D does very poorly. So that's the gunslinger on your journey. It starts as a fighter. We'll talk more about it a bit later. This is going to be, there'll be another video coming up. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. let me know what you think and whether you've encountered any other homebrew